Okay, so welcome everyone to the revised MnCHOICES application MnCHOICES mentor meeting. We have kind of a tight agenda today and I want to make sure we have a chance to get through all 3 hours. Amy, go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is the people who are on the call with me today. My name is Teresa Vanderbent. I'm the MnCHOICES training person. You will hear a number of these people present throughout the time. And if you have your PDF PowerPoint in front of you, you will notice that Heather Finlayson's name was missing the ER. Her name is not Heath. Her name is Heather. So apologize to Heather for the spelling issue, but at least it's right on this slide for so that we have it. So go ahead, Amy, go to the next slide. So this session is being recorded. We're using web audio. You're all muted. We have a very structured time today because we want to get through all of the content. So we're going to give you a chance to raise your hands where there are questions specific to the information people presented. We're not going to have you put in anything in chat because I don't want to get off of the subject here, which is to make sure we get through all the current functionality since that is something that has been important to you. But when it's time, we'll have you raise your hand and we'll take you off mute and you can ask your question. And if you can, please stay to the topic of the items that were presented before and not get ahead or on another topic, because this we promised you that we would go through the current functionality with you as mentors. And we want to make sure that we do that and that we honor that time together with you today. We're excited to be here. We have much respect for you as mentors, and we want to make sure we get a chance to go through all of the content. So go ahead, Amy, next slide, please. So today's terms are pretty basic. Launch is the day the application is available for use. Requirements mean what expectations did we put in writing that said this is the way we expect the application to work? So we've collected those decisions. A defect means that the computer application isn't functioning as the requirements expected them to. And then this current functionality and enhancement document that we'll be working through today just provides general descriptions on current functionality and the directions on how to complete your work while you're waiting for updates. So go ahead to the next slide, Amy. So here's our agenda. We're going to talk a little bit quick about how the form is organized and how to use it. And then we're going to go through each of these sections. In the communication you got today, we kind of talked through time. And so this is how we are going to go through our schedule for today. So go ahead, Amy, next slide. So I talked a little bit about it. So the current functionality document is really about general description of some known issues and instructions on how to work around them in the production environment. Our goal today is to get you acquainted with the document so that you can go out and use it for yourself and practice an MTZ and get comfortable with the instructions, as well as to make sure that you then give it to your folks. They learn where to find it in the help center and they get comfortable with the instructions. You need to know though that for these, the functionality that we're going to go through today, many of them you won't encounter every day. You'll only encounter them for specific instances. And then when you hit that specific instance, you will require a workaround and you'll need to know where to find it to learn how to do it. And then once you're used to doing it, you might not need to use this document anymore. Go ahead, Amy. So it has a table of contents. It has screenshots in it to make sure to help you with your understanding so you know what we're talking about. And we tried to make it by form and by type and by section so that it was easy to follow and know what we were referring to. And you're going to feel that structure in today's presentation. Go ahead, Amy. So let's first look at person information. Next slide. So we have a person profile, and one of the things that we have heard you say is there's an address field when you add a contact, and that field is required before entering the contact. If you don't enter the address field, you can't add the contact. And your question was, what do we do when we don't know the address? Next slide, please. Oh, you know what? Go back, Amy. It didn't have, okay. So the directions are to click lives with a person, and then the note in the note section is to put contact does not live with the person, address unknown. So that way you can go on, you won't get stopped in your work. And what it'll do when you do that, lives with the person, is it'll copy the person's address into that contact's information, but your note will make it clear, nope, this person doesn't live with them, but I have to get past this address requirement. And so that's the point of this one. Next slide, please. Split view is having some display issues. What you'll see in this screenshot is that the scroll bars on one side where it's the forms list and on the other side where it's the profiles list aren't there. You can't see the scrolling anymore, they're gone. And so can you go to the next slide, please? So what you'll have to do when you see that happen is use your browser back arrow and then it will reset it. And then you could potentially see if the scroll bars come back. They may not, and you may just find out that for some functions, the split view isn't the best way to go. But that's what we've tried to try to make it better. When we lose the scrolling up and down is to use the back arrow and see if that fixes it. If it doesn't, you're going to have to not use split view until we have the ability to have it fixed. Next slide. Okay, so person records form view. What you're seeing when you look at this form is you can see the form type, the program created by, all of that other information. But what you'll notice is when you have a support plan, the form type won't display. So you're not going to see it's a support plan for an HRA, it's a support plan for a MnCHOICES assessment, or that it's a support plan M&A MCO. It's not going to show up. So what you're going to have to do is open the support plan up and look for that information on that first page. And so we just wanted you aware that you're not going to be able to tell it from this forms list page. Next slide, please. So we have some forms that we call custom forms because we've been able to make them ourselves. And so the CFSS to PCA conversion worksheet is one of them. All of the evaluation and screening documents, when you go to that form drop down, are them. And the support plan EW customized living and foster care worksheet is one of them. And what we're telling you in this screen is that when you use those custom forms, when you are done using them, they're still going to be available to edit, and they shouldn't be editable after you're done with them.
Is it over?
Could you make sure everyone's on mute again, please?
He died.
Yeah, he went with the train.
Thank you for unmuting me. So you won't, though you can edit it, you of course shouldn't edit it when you are done. And so we're just letting that you know that if you need to make changes on it, we would prefer you create a new document rather than edit it, so that there's one form for each time, rather than editing an existing form over and over and over again. So each time you need to do it, then you would create a new one and not edit the existing one. Next slide, please. So I am going to have Rakia Banya come on and walk through these slides. You can move to the next slide, Amy. Rakia, can you get off mute? Is it possible? Oh, she's double muted, she's saying. So, Mung, can you take Rakia off mute?
All right, can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry about that, I couldn't go off mute. Okay, so I'm going to spend some time talking about the health risk assessment and the support plan that is associated with the health risk assessment. And so for this workaround, so when in instances where a person refuses or the person is not located, the care coordinator would navigate to the assessment details domain, and under the assessment results, select that the person declined the health risk assessment or that they were not located for the health risk assessment. And so in doing so, the system will not allow the user to close the HRA by changing the status to complete. It will show that the completion requirements are not met. And so on slide 16, we talk about the directions that you should follow is that when you're selecting one of the two options for the person declines or cannot be located, you will then have to change the status of the HRA to discard, and this will allow the HRA to be closed without fulfilling the rest of those completion requirements. And then onto the next slide for the support plan HRA. So when a user is creating or selecting a new form from the Forms icon menu, and they choose support plan in the form category and form from the drop-down menu, the program drop-down menu does not include HRA as a choice. And so in this instance, when you're creating a support plan that's associated with an HRA, which is the support plan HRA, the care coordinator will then choose other in the program drop-down menu. And I believe that's on slide 18. Yep, so the directions that we provide for this workaround, again, is just to choose other when you get to that program drop-down menu until we get this addressed in the system. And then moving on to slide 19. So to create a support plan HRA, the program, and when the program other is selected, the services that are associated with the program other do not include all of the HRA services. And so after you choose add service or support plan, or sorry, add service or support, and then select services that support me in the service type drop-down menu, you will then go to the service name field to search for, your typical HRA service. And at this time, the system will report that no record is found. And so on the next slide, until we're able to get this addressed in the system, when no service is found, when you get that message, when that message displays, the care coordinator would need to search for other in that field, and then select link, and then in the contact information, where it's highlighted on the screen there, in that text box field, you would then enter the name of the service and the service provider, and then complete the remaining contact information as well. Thanks.
Looks like Teresa may need to be unmuted.
Hey, I unlock.
Yep, I can see it. Yep, so Amy, I believe this next one is yours for a bit, so you can go ahead and get started. You didn't have to wait for me.
Oh, okay. I thought I was taking over at a later point, so I will
Well,
start.
no, just go ahead and advance the slide, and then we'll go from there. Okay?
Sure, no problem.
Sorry.
That's fine.
So we're going to spend a little bit of time on functional assessment section. So let's go ahead and get started. Yep, I can take these. So in the community living section in the functional assessment for the MnCHOICES assessment, you're going to see a place where for work status, you're going to pick not working. And what's going to happen is that though you picked not working, you are still going to see work status questions. So you should, if you should just choose satisfied about current employment as the answer when that occurs. Go ahead to the next slide. In the well-being and health intervention section, we've talked about this one before, but I'll talk about it again. So what's going to happen is when you pick in the health interventions and you click on the box other, it's what you see the others say is select all the therapies in which the person is currently engaged, but actually it's a text box. It's not a drop-down menu. So what we'll ask you to do is then just in the text box to type in the other therapies. So take advantage of the text box. Don't wait for it to give you a display drop-down menu because you're not getting one, nor are you doing anything wrong. It's just that field's been mislabeled. Next slide. So now we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to go through the MnCHOICES assessment results. And Amy, I bet that's where you're going to go ahead and get started from here. Go ahead to the next slide. Let's just make sure, right?
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Here we go. Yep, and I can take these, Teresa.
Okay, cool.
So hi everyone, it's Amy Alexander, working the MnCHOICES team, and I'm going to be going through some of the next slides regarding assessment results. And so the one that's on the screen right now is about assessment results will display before all the required fields are complete. So you'll see here in the completion requirements that not all of the functional assessment was completed in this instance. And when you go to your results page, it will still allow you to run the results and get results, even if not all of the completion requirements are met. So in these so for this, the directions for this are that you should review the completion requirements and make sure that everything is completed, which is indicated by the green check mark, before you get results. And then there's some additional instructions that if activity information and or functional assessment were incomplete, but you haven't created the screening documents yet, and you ran the rules, but you hadn't completed screening documents, you're going to go back and complete all the required fields and ensure that the completion requirements are all met. And then you're going to go back and again select Get Results. If there are items in the activity information and or the functional assessments that were incomplete and you had already created the screening documents, you're going to go back and complete all the required fields, make sure there's that green check mark by everything. You're going to select Get Results, and then you're going to go into your screening document and just save it. So that will update the screening document with any changes that might have occurred by completing those additional items that were maybe incomplete. So that's that one. Okay, and then we're going to move on to this one, which is regarding the medical assistance for long-term care. So, and this one I might actually just, show you in the system if I can navigate back and I didn't get logged out as I was showing these slides. So, but for this one, the MnCHOICES assessment, part of the rules that that run in the eligibility results show if the person was eligible for MALTC as part of the criteria for different programs. And the way that the rules are set up right now, that MA field is being populated and pulled in from MMIS on a nightly load. So every night when you add a new person to the system, so a brand new person, they won't show eligible for MALTC right away until that nightly load occurs. So if you start an assessment for a person before that nightly load has occurred, or the person just didn't have MA in place when you opened that assessment, it is going to not show them eligible for MALTC when you go to run your results. Let's see if I can. So in those instances, you're going to need to, until this is fixed in the system, you'll need to mark the assessment incomplete once the person, once that nightly load happens and it shows they're eligible for MALTC, or, later on in the process, the person gains MALTC eligibility, you'll mark it as incomplete and then just create a new one and have everything copied over from the last assessment. I'm going to attempt to show you guys what that looks like, so just give me 1 second while I navigate. Oh yeah, and it did sign me out, so let me just sign back in really quickly. And then I can show you some other things too if it works out. So let me just get myself signed back in. Okay. And I just want to show you those fields because it might make more sense to just show you what fields I'm talking about in the assessment. All right, so we're going to go into Delford's assessment, which I'll demo some other things in there. So the place that I'm talking about where the MA fields will populate from MMIS is right here on the person's profile, or on the left-hand side here in the health information tile under health insurance. So you'll see the source says MMIS. And this populates right from MMIS with their start date and all the information. But like I said, that happens on the nightly load. And so once you go into the assessment, there is an area where you can change the MA status, but unfortunately the rules right now are connected to this field. So I'll show you on the form if it opens up. Okay. So there is a field. Let me go back into edit mode. Sorry for all the clicking. I was logged in right to my spot, but then it logged me out as I was showing the other slide, so I apologize. So there is a part in here. So if you change this status here of MA, it's not going to, unfortunately, map to the results. And so you are able to change the MA eligibility here, and eventually we'll be switching it so that's what is mapped to the rules, but for now it's the one that comes over from MMIS. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my slides. Okay, and then the next one is about the program eligibility in the summary. And so in the summary, you'll see that that it shows a person is eligible for one waiver. But if you go down to the program eligibility details, it will show all the waivers that the person met all the requirements for. So up here in the first program eligibility summary, which I'll navigate back to the application and show you it as well, but it will show here one program that aligns with the person's level of care. And it'll have this language here that says aligns with level of care based on specialized needs. So it will kind of help you point to that waiver that aligns with their, I guess, highest or their level of care that's based on their needs. And these will all say not eligible, but when you scroll down to the program eligibility details and you look at the collapsed view, it will show you all the programs that they met criteria for. So for this example, CAC was the one that aligns with their level of care. And then when you scroll down, you'll see that they did have eligibility for these other programs. This is obviously just an example, probably pretty rare, but, and then I'm gonna go back and show you that quickly.
We have a chat option.
Nope, chat is not available for this call, but we will have a time where you can raise your hand and ask questions.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to go into the results here and show you what we're looking at. So let's collapse these. So in this example here, for this individual, it says the brain injury waiver is where they're eligible, aligns with their level of care. But when we scroll down and look at the collapse view, you'll see here that they did meet requirements for both BI and CADI. So this is where you're going to see all their program. This is the one that is aligned with their level of care. I'm going to actually just keep going, and I'll go through the slides and show you these. But the next one that we're going to look at has to do with this collapse and expanded view. So when you see this collapse view, you'll see that they met brain injury and they met CADI. However, when you go to look at the expanded view, there's some inconsistencies where it says that they're not eligible, even though they met all of the requirements. So in those instances, you are going to just look at what says met here, and that's the programs that they met all eligibility for, and you'll disregard if it says not eligible here. So you're just looking at these met statuses. So again, here's the waiver that aligns with their level of care, and then here the met ones are the ones that they actually met all the other criteria for, that they have an option of for programs. Okay, I'm going to go back and go through those slides. So here's the one I just showed you, which is the next one where it says met, and then you expand it and it says not eligible. And you're just going to disregard the not eligible. If it says met, then you know they met all the requirements. All right, and I'm going to keep going. So the next one is about individuals who are over 65 and are returning to a disability waiver. And so policy allows a person who is over 65 to return to a disability waiver. It doesn't have to be the same one they were on before, so it's just a disability waiver that they meet eligibility for in certain instances. And the way that the assessment is set up right now, there's this item that says the choice to stay on or return to a disability waiver. So if the person's over 65, this will show up in the informed choice section. And you'll select that the person is over 65 and choosing to stay on. And then it will ask you right in this section to choose which waiver. And so we are going to be making some changes to how that works, since the person, you might not know exactly, because you might not have run the results yet to know what other waivers they were eligible for. But in the meantime, you're going to select here which waiver they would like to return to. Whichever one you select here, in this example, it was CADI. When you go to your assessment results, that's the one that's going to show met here for the age criteria 65 and older and choose to stay on. So because you selected CADI there, it's going to show met here. And then the next slide is going to show you. So for brain injury, for example, for the same person, it's showing them not met. So if you got to the results and they met everything else for brain injury, and they were deciding that they actually wanted to return to a brain injury waiver or go on a brain injury waiver, in that instance, you'd have to go back into that informed choice section and select brain injury waiver. And then when you reran the results, then this one will show met. So it's only going to show met for age criteria for the one that you select in that item in informed choice. So this is just more information about that and about the policy. So it allows the person 65 and older to move to another disability waiver or return to a disability waiver if the person meets certain eligibility requirements. So this is the item where you would select it. All right.
So we're going to,
go ahead,
so
Teresa.
yeah, so we're going to take a little bit of time and let people ask some questions, because we just went through a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And we want to make sure that they have a chance to back us up and ask a few questions, and we're doing really good for timing. So I have, you heard me say earlier, we've shut chat off, and the reason for it is we want to make sure we get through all this, we get through all of the content. And so I want to give you a moment. We went through quite a number of things. Is there anything in particular in the items that we have went through that you feel like you need to ask a question about? You can raise your hand and then we can call on you, and I will have Mung unmute you. So do you have any questions specifically about the ones that we have went through so far? I'm going to give everyone a chance. I'm not seeing any questions, but I want to give you
This
a
is
chance to.
Kramer. I raised my hand. Can you not see
Oh, I couldn't see you. Okay, Rochelle, you go ahead.
Rochelle Kramer from Wright County Health and Human Services. I just want to make sure I understand the piece where you were talking about MALTC eligibility. And there was something about you need to do another assessment to have it pull in. Can you clarify that? You know what I'm asking?
Yeah,
Can
I do
you-
know what you're asking.
Yeah, I
So
was
let
going to
me-
say, yeah, referring back to the slide number also helps, just so you know.
No, that's
sorry
okay.
about that.
I know what you're asking about here. So so this is an item that, like a lot of the other ones we're covering today is going to, we have a request to change, but right now the information for health insurance, so MALTC, is being pulled in from this nightly load that happens here. It's not in the form, like in the actual assessment. It's in this person's, I guess kind of like their profile on the left-hand side in this health information. So when you add a new person to the system, this health insurance information from MMIS, it only happens on a nightly load. So when you add them that day, if you open their assessment the same day and they don't have, they're not showing their MALTC eligibility here yet, and you open an assessment that same day, when you go to run your results, and I'll show you which, oops, did not mean to click on that. When you go to run your results, it's not going to show the person eligible for MALTC, which is going to impact, a lot of their other program eligibility. And so in those instances where you opened a form prior to that nightly load or prior to them being eligible, until it gets fixed in the system, you'll need to mark the assessment incomplete, and then you just go to start another assessment and have everything copy over. And once you do that, and that health information has loaded, then they'll show eligible for MALTC, and you shouldn't have any issues. And you can you can select the option to have everything copy over from your last assessment.
So just to make sure I understand, what you're saying is then once the financial worker opens the person to MALTC and we have an overnight cycle or whatever, then the next day it would be auto-filled from MMIS. But if we already have an assessment open, we're going to have to mark it incomplete and then create a new one.
Correct. Yep.
And this is temporary?
Yes. Yep. And
Okay.
then you can choose to have everything copy over. So if you started the assessment and you have content in there, you can, when you go to start your new one, you can select to have everything copied over.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question about earlier when you were talking about they cannot, for HRAs, for care coordinators, they cannot mark it as complete for the assessment results, that they have to click discard. I heard that correctly, right?
You were hearing it for the HRA.
Yes, for the HRA, for the care coordinators.
Yep,
Yep.
and that is correct. So when you're documenting those refusals or unable to be located assessments, you'll have to mark it as discard in order to get past those completion requirements. But
Right.
when it is fixed in the system, then you'll be able to just mark it as complete.
I'm sorry, I missed that. When it's what in the system?
It's fixed.
Oh, okay. So when they do that, is there a way to determine like if it's a true discard or if it's a workaround discard?
So you'll see if you go back and look at the slide in particular, you will see that when you pick incomplete, you're picking the person's reason for not having the assessment. And so you'll always be able to see that it's saying discard, or it's saying, yeah, it's saying that the person chose not to have it. So you'll use the two together to know it.
Yeah, and so when you change the status to discard, you will be able to run a report by pulling up the discarded HRAs and filtering by the assessment results.
Okay, I'll have to take a look at that. And just for my own clarification, there will not be a way for case managers, care coordinators in the system to know about the inaccuracies that we're speaking about today without actually having these workarounds up, right? I mean, there's nothing that's going to say.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they will have to use the current functionality document to know them. Mm-hmm. Yep, and you'll want to train people to know them, to know when to go look for them. Yep, having
Right,
them,
because nothing's gonna
nope.
kind of give them a heads up that this may not be accurate. So almost like they would have to take this document and highlight ones that'll be consistently not a potential problem and always look for those, and then other ones would be more specific based on the workaround.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise they're not going to know, and it's potential that they would miss something.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So folks, we're struggling here with, because you can take yourselves off mute, and and calling on you is different than what we're normally used to doing it. And so we're trying to make sure that we stay coordinated. I would like us to take like 3 more questions and then move on, and I know there are many more of you than there's time for, so you could leave your hands up and we could call on you later. I just want to make sure we get through the content. So let's go ahead and do the next person then. And then Mung, can you say who you're unmuting?
Yeah, Jessica, you're the first on the list, so I'm gonna unmute you.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Amy, in the example you were showing, you showed how to manually change the MA status. And I know that won't matter for results until this is fixed, but what domain was that in within the assessment?
Mm-hmm. So Amy, could you hear her okay?
Yep, I could hear. Yeah, it was
Okay.
a little muffled, but I could hear her. So let me show you, Jessica. So it's back in the person's form. And sorry, this is a little bit slower than normal today, I think. You know, always when you're showing your screen, everything is seems to be slower. So it's in the program-specific requirements. So under activity information and then program-specific requirements. And these will actually, yeah, they'll auto-populate from that health information tile, and then, but it does give you the option to change it here. So yeah, that's where it is.
Thank you.
So Mung, who's the next person, please?
We're gonna go to Ruth, and I will unmute you. Can you hear Ruth?
Great, thank you. So on that same subject with the MALTC, when we're finding out later that they're eligible and we have to create a new assessment, that assessment date is wrong. Can we backdate it to the original date then, or what do we do for that?
Okay, Ruth, sorry, I was stuck on mute and trying to go back into my assessment here. So you're able to put in dates here. So you're able to put in the activity date, the original activity date
You can
here.
backdate an assessment then?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily backdating it because you're actually putting in the date you did the assessment, right? So you're not like saying it was a different date. You're putting in the true date, right? So
Right, but yeah, the old system didn't allow that. So this one is going to allow it for this case. Okay.
Yeah, yep, until we get that fixed, yep, you'll just put in that same date right here in the activity date.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
We're gonna
Go ahead,
take
Mung.
one more, and that's Ricky Vang.
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute and you're unmuting me. This is Ricky Vang from Blue Plus. I have a quick question. So I heard you say that support plans, again, regardless of the type of assessment it's associated with, once it's closed and completed, you cannot reopen it to edit it, and you have to create a new one. So when we were talking about the support plan is supposed to be a living document, you know, when people have inpatient stays, when they have other needs of services or DME and that kind of thing, and we need to add it. So whether it be ongoing or whether it be at the mid-year check-in, are we then opening a new support plan and we have the option to copy over the previous one, or then would it open up a blank one and we'd have to refill everything so we could update the ongoing support plan, if that makes any sense, and then we'd have to close it afterwards?
So Ricky, I'm not sure that you heard. So for changes to support plans, you can use revise, the revise function to change a support plan. I don't remember seeing what you're asking specifically in the HRA current functionality slides that we are talking about today.
Yeah, I believe that somebody had mentioned that you're not able to, you have to create a new support plan. And it came when you guys were talking about the CFSS, PCA, the eval screening, and then the support plan. And I put a note down that you
We'll
had to
take
create
that
a new.
back. I want to stay on the topic on these slides,
Okay.
so I'm going to have to say thank you, and we'll take that back and handle it another day. And I'm going to ask folks, I need you to stay on topic for the topic that we're having today to make sure that we get through the content. And Amy, I'm going to have you advance to the next one, and I believe that we have Beth coming on to talk through the next ones, and then if we continue to stay on time, I will allow for many more questions at the next question spot. So go ahead, Beth, if you are ready to be off mute.
Hi, everybody. It's Beth Stewart of the MnCHOICES team. I am here to talk with you about the MnCHOICES assessment results for case mix specifically. So these are 4 items that we have that are related to case mix that you need to be aware of. So 99% of the time your case mix is going to be fine, but you need to have these handy in your memory as you're doing an assessment to know that if you're running into this specific scenario, that you will need to check it against the rules that we outlined in the functionality document, and make a change if needed. So I'm going to walk you through what each of these are, and hopefully they're out here so you can keep going through, and you can go ahead to go to the next one. I'll just walk them through individually. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the first one is about the neuromuscular diagnosis not being applied to the case mix J calculation. So what this means is that MnCHOICES is going to assign a case mix of J when I is really appropriate. And so you'll get an inaccurate result, and MMIS is going to not like your document. But so it happens when all of the 4 items, or when all of the 3 items below occur. So the person isn't in the eating and meal prep section. The person isn't. You didn't click that they had a neuromuscular diagnosis. They aren't identified as having a swallowing disorder, so with a frequency of more than 1 time per day in complex health. And then the person is identified as needing higher levels of support when eating. So they have a choking risk. They need supervision throughout in eating and meal preparation in those sections. So we'll go on to see what the directions are. So when you see those 3 things, you are most likely going to see a case mix J on your LTC screening document or in your assessment results rather than an I. And so we're going to walk you through the circumstances that are necessary for you to change it back to an I. So what we want you to do is to check to see if all of the following are true. So this one has 2 slides. So the first one is that assessment results page. So where Amy was showing earlier the met, not met information, that assessment results page displays the following. So the person has an eating disorder, or not eating disorder, oh goodness. The person has an eating score of 0.3 or 0.4 is met, and neuromuscular conditions display as met. And then when you're looking back at your assessment, you know that you didn't click the neurological condition affecting neuromuscular control in the eating section. So then we're going to go on and we're going to look at the next slide that has the last 2 that are about in complex health. So it's selected that they identified complex health treatments for a swallowing disorder. And so if you select both of those, that they have complex health needs and that the person has a swallowing disorder, you're going to get a case mix J versus I. And so if all of the following, so we're going into the next slide, if all of the following conditions are met, you'll make a distinguishable correction, you'll hand correct from case mix J to case mix I on the printout of the LTC. You'll add a note saying that the correction was made with guidance from DHS for MMIS, and then you'll communicate the corrected case mix classification. You'll communicate it to whoever's entering it. They'll see it because you made a hand correction. You'll communicate again to the case manager for support planning purposes so that they have an awareness that what they might see as assessment results is incorrect. And then you'll make a change in any documents you're sending to the person. So on the assessment summary, it'll print out case mix. And so you'll want to make sure to make that change for the person on the assessment summary. And if you're sending, well, of course, you're sending assessment results and any support plan documentation as well. So this is an awareness for both assessors and case managers. Oh, wow. Okay, so next we're going into what a distinguishable correction is, which I've been referring to all along. But it is that you're going to print and hand correct the document. You're loading the document or downloading the document and editing it. So you're able to, when you're printing a document, you can download it as a Word document and make the change manually on your computer and then upload it as an attachment to the person's record so that you have it there as well. But that's what we mean by a change. Otherwise, if you were just using paper to print out the stuff for someone to enter into MMIS or yourself to enter into MMIS, you can make that hand change too. Your lead agency can determine how they want to approach this one. So next, we're going to go into the next one, the second defect that we have regarding case mix. And so this one is mobility. It's about mobility is inaccurately applied as critical activities for daily living as a case mix A. So this is really only going to affect populations of people who are over 65, and 2 of these are like that. So that's important to know if you but it's if you're working with somebody who's over 65. But when the person, the MnCHOICES is going to assign an A to a person who's 65 and older instead of a case mix L. So we'll want to make sure to be checking that. We're going to go through the directions next. So the directions are, thanks, Amy. Until it's fixed, you must review the case mix chart in the assessment results and know that if a person is 65 or older that MnCHOICES assigns them a case mix A, you should check to make sure the case mix criteria results to determine if all of the following are true. The person should have 0 to 2 ADLs, all 3 critical dependencies, which are toileting, positioning, and transferring, display as not met. And then on the next slide, we're talking about if all of the conditions are true, you'll make, again, a distinguishable correction from a case mix A to an L. On the printout of the screening document, of the LTC screening document, you'll, again, put the note that this change was made due to guidance from DHS. You'll correct it and communicate it to everyone who might be involved, and then for the person. So the same steps, you'll see that we have a trend with how we're correcting these, and that you'll make that change for the person as well. Okay, so our next slide is our third item. And so this is kind of the opposite. So it's the same thing, but the system, and this one you're used to, you see this one today, but the system incorrectly applies case mix L instead of case mix A. So if you're over 65 and on a disability waiver, I'm sure that you've seen that you get, it'll give you a case mix L instead of an A in our description or and as we go into our direction, it doesn't change from what it is today, that you'll review the case mix chart. You'll make sure that the person is indeed on a disability waiver, and you'll make that change. That you'll look to see that they're on a disability waiver, returning to a disability waiver, and that they've made an informed choice. You'll make sure the criteria results display 0 to 2 ADL dependencies. And that critical dependencies, the ADL criteria as not met, is displayed as well. And so our directions are the same as they've been. You'll change it on the LTC screening document from an L to an A. You'll make a note, you'll communicate to everyone that you need to, and you'll make sure that it is correct for the person. Okay, so our last one is about being confined to a bed and transferring. So, thanks, Amy. Okay. So, confined to bed and transferring is inaccurately applied. So, the MnCHOICES application does not account for the lack of mobility as a dependency when a person is confined to bed. or typically does not move around the environment is exactly the wording of the response to that question. And this is all in the movement section. So, so the inaccuracy of counting dependencies affects the accuracy of the case mix classification in assessment results. So we'll talk through a little bit of how to identify this, so the direction. So you must complete the following requirements for the functional assessment. You'll select print, you'll choose the supplemental summary chart, and you'll navigate to the ADLs section of the chart. You'll count the number of dependencies in the dependency column. So that a dependency will show as yes. You'll see yes or no. You'll confirm that mobility displays no in the LTC dependency column. And if this is the case, you'll add in one additional dependency to the person's total number of dependencies. And then you'll do the same. You'll navigate to the assessment results, review the information in the ADL dependencies criteria as a case mix criteria results table, which is in the assessment results. You'll see case mix there too. You'll compare the number of LTC dependencies in this step to the number of dependencies in the ADL dependencies criteria chart. And if the number of dependencies from steps 1 and 2 match, do nothing, proceed as usual. But if the number of dependencies from step 1 is greater than what is shown in the ADL dependencies criteria, complete the following. So you will refer to the case mix classification worksheet. You'll use the classification decision tree on page 4 to determine if a person's place, or to determine what the classification should be. You'll compare the points in the decision tree to the information in the case mix table results, in the assessment results, to determine if the case mix classification criteria was met or not. If the case mix classification is the same as what the application produced, you don't need to do anything. You can proceed as usual. If the case mix is different, oh, sorry, Amy, I'm looking at 2 different things. Can we go forward one more slide? Thank you. So that last slide was if it's different, business as usual. If it is different, or if it's the same, I'm sorry, if it's the same, business as usual. So here we're going on to, if it's different, do the following. Make a distinguishable correction. So change the case mix. If you determined using the tool, the case mix classification worksheet, that the tool is inaccurately determining the dependency because mobility is, or the person is confined to bed, you'll do the same thing. You'll update the LTC screening document. You'll make a correction to the language for DHS, or DHS gave you this guidance for the MMIS screen. You'll communicate to everybody that needs to know, and then you'll make the correction for the person and make sure that their documents are accurate. So that is what we have for case mix.
So I want to go ahead and take the 2 questions that we have, and then we'll go from there. So Mung, let's start with Tasha, please, if we could. Will you unmute her?
Tasha, you're on mute.
So, thank you. So I have a question on the first section. Is it okay if I still ask that now?
Sure, you can see if we can, yep, go ahead.
Perfect. So I know when you were talking about the MMIS communication between MnCHOICES and MMIS, I know there's been some confusion on what exactly is taking place there, because sometimes we get told it doesn't communicate with MMIS at all, and other times, like today, I think you mentioned it does like a nightly pull from MMIS and updates that, excuse me, in MnCHOICES. So can we have some clarification on what all functionality is going to occur between MnCHOICES and MMIS, please?
So Swindex pulls from MMIS, and it works just like the MnCHOICES assessment database does now for updating. I would like to wait and have that as a conversation at our March webinar, since I know it's kind of indirectly related, right? But just know that Swindex pulls from Maxis and MMIS and SSIS to pull data into the database. And the exact timing and how that works is something that we will talk about soon. I'm working on getting the path all laid out so that I can talk about it in detail that will make sense to each of you. So thank you for your question.
Mhm.
Let's go ahead and take Sheila Mong.
So my question is regarding case mix and some of these other workarounds, are we at all concerned about inaccurate eligibility being determined for people? I'm thinking about, we have some new assessors, you know, if you don't have the history of knowing case mix and some of these things, and then you have to just personally go in and change those, I feel like we could be inaccurately determining eligibility for people.
It's one of those things.
It's why.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Beth.
Okay, I would just say that that's why we're talking about it today, is that we want to make sure that you are as an assessor aware, and even as a new assessor aware, that if you're seeing these things, you'll need to go back and check. So anybody with a case mix J, you're gonna want to check. You know, A and L, you're gonna want to check these. When you have mobility or confined to bed, those need to be flagged for assessors, even new assessors. And you know, you guys can work together in your LTC consultation groups, or you can contact us, and we're happy to provide information if there's anything that you might be unclear about.
So how will
going
this
forward?
then
So
be affected when we do like a reassessment for somebody who, will this information pull over again to the other assessments, and then their eligibility be different from one year to the next?
Well, by eligibility, so ADLs, I mean, we're talking about case mix, and you're talking maybe from an EW perspective.
Well, I mean, kind of on
budget?
both. I mean, there just seems like a lot of manual workarounds, and I'm just concerned that that information gets pulled to the next year. So if you do a manual on paper and then somebody else does the assessment next time around, how is this information going to be pulled to the next reassessment? And then lastly, I'm just wondering, with these things that we are seeing that need to be fixed, what's the time frame on that? Like, are we talking soon after the rollout, or like, what do we have any inclination of how long these functionalities are going to be the way they are?
So in regards to length of
Go ahead,
time,
Teresa.
one of the things that we need to put together for you is kind of the schedule in order. We currently don't have that available for you today, but we will. So we may not have the time, but we may be able to tell you, here's the order that they're in. And I want to take just one more question, and then I want to go on, and then again, we'll get through assessment summary. We'll take a few more questions. If we get through all the assessment and there's time and we're still staying good on our time schedule, then I'll take as many as we can until I have it set for break, the time for break, just to make sure that we get through the content. And so let's take one more question, and then we will go ahead and go to break. Can we take Sheila next?
No, you're unmuted.
I actually asked my questions.
Okay, so then we'll put Sheila back on mute. Jessica, I think we had you ask a question before, so if I could, I would like to go to Sharon.
Hi, my question is, do we have a time frame on when these workarounds will be fixed?
You may not have heard me say it, but yes, we will put something in together that lets you kind of know the order and when, and an idea. I'll just say in order. I don't know if I can promise timing, and we will let you know that at a later date. So let's go ahead and go to the next section, and then if we have, when that's done, then we'll take a few more questions. I just want to make sure we stay good on time.
Okay, everybody. So we are going to talk about the assessment summary. And so we have a few things on the assessment summary that we want to make sure that you're aware of, and that just to talk through, so that on the assessment summary, you know, this will happen with most assessment summaries that you see, that there are changes that you'll need to make. And again, just for reference, when I'm talking about assessment summary, I'm talking about what's currently referred to as the community support plan, or this is our summary of assessment. So it got named something a little bit closer to what it is. Okay, so let's go on to the first one. So the first one is the assessment summary will display eligibility for CFSS when the program is not available. And so what this one is about is that you're going to say that it's that the CFSS program itself is not available. We programmed MnCHOICES to display everything for CFSS and not PCA, because we were thinking that we were launching, or that CFSS was going to be able to launch before us. But with that in mind, we have workarounds for you for just what you need to do. So if the person is eligible for CFSS and they have, and this is only in these cases, they have a home care rating, a home care rating of PQ or R, we'll need to translate those CFSS hours back to PCA. And so there's a form that will be available to you that will do that translation for you. It's very fast. There's just three things that three fields that you have to complete, and it'll make the translation for you and give you the specific writing for your assessment summary. Depending upon, and your change to the assessment summary would be if it'll give you the directions, but if the person remains with a home care rating of PQ or R, there's no changes that are needed to the assessment summary. It's only when that PQ or R might change back to a LT home rating. And so that's when you would make changes to the assessment summary and use the language that's provided within the CFSS conversion form. So you'll make a distinction and it does tell you that you'll make a change on the assessment summary. You'll change the results based upon PCA, and then it gives you the specific language that you'll use. So you'll have that available to you soon. Our next one is about the assessment summary printout, that it only includes the highest level of need. And so, you know, you can remember earlier Amy was showing when she was saying that this person met hospital level of care, but yet the person was eligible when you looked below, that the person was eligible for, I think they were eligible for everything, BI, and DD, and CADIs. In addition, and so what this is it's the waiver program with the highest need is going to print on the assessment summary. And so what you'll need to do is make a hand correction if the person really does need hospital level of care but needs to access BI rather than hospital level of care, or whatever that might be. And you'll probably see this more frequently between maybe DD and CADI. So that's the change that you'll need to make to the assessment summary. And again, it's a hand correction. If you make changes to, or if it needs changes, you'll need to upload, so scan or save the corrected assessment to the person's record as an attachment. And you can tell that the system will still determine that they've met criteria, and you just need to go down to that program level eligibility results. Okay, so the next one, we're going to go down to the notice of action. So we've included the notice of action in the assessment summary, as I'm sure that you guys have been out and doing your testing and have seen that that's part of the assessment summary is now your notice of action is in there. There's temporary AC was included in that list, and but the reasons for temporary AC, so when you click on AC or you click on EW, it gives you those reasons of why the person may not be eligible. If it's, say, BI, you're not 65 or older, so you're not eligible for AC. But so those reasons don't populate when you click AC. And so our directions are that, or when you click AC, temporary AC, I'm sorry, it works when you say AC. It does not work when you say temporary AC. So our directions are, if somebody is not eligible for temporary AC, is to say that they're not eligible for the program of AC in general, and then your reasons will show. So this one's a quick workaround. It doesn't require any changes other than for the assessor to be aware that you don't need to select temporary AC. You can just select AC. Okay, questions regarding assessment summary?
I see that Madonna's hand is raised. Let's start with Madonna, please.
Madonna, you are unmuted.
Go ahead,
Hi, Dr.
Madonna.
Teresa. If I may go back to the case mix workarounds. I know within those slides you talked about the case mix issues and reviewing, the certain ADLs as it relates to the, the LTC screening doc and the scoring, or I should say the LTC scores. Knowing that we're about 30 days out from launch, 30 plus days out from launch, it really would be most helpful if we actually had the LTC screening doc populate in the training zone, so that we can refer to that as well to look at scoring. And just wondering, when do you foresee that screening doc populating for us in the training zone to help us in this area?
I'm going to defer that one to you.
I don't have an answer for you for it yet today, Madonna. I will ask the question
Okay.
and I will get back.
Okay. I know I've submitted questions to the help desk and I haven't heard anything back. And I just think it would help all of us to understand the tool, understanding the LTC scores and how we navigate these workarounds to teach others on our teams. So thank you.
Yep, I have marked it down on my list. Thank you. So let's go ahead with Jessica Mickelson, please.
Hi, my question is reverting back to the case mix also. So Beth, when she was going through the examples of where the issues lay, she said the first one, MMIS wouldn't accept the screening document anyways. I'm wondering if that's true for all of them. So if the assessor does miss it when they're running eligibility, would this get caught when the support staff is trying to enter it into MMIS?
In most cases, it will. So you would see this today. You'd see it for somebody over 65 who's on a CADI waiver. You would see, if you try to put in a case mix L, MMIS is going to say no. And so you would see it, but where you're not going to see it is where some of the mobility ones and the confined to bed, because the score might be a little bit wonky. I'd have to think more about that, but it's a really good question. But it will, MMIS is going to help you, but we really want you taking a look at this document and making sure that you're going through when you have those specific situations to be familiar with it.
And then thank you, Beth. My second question, real quick, when will the new training zone be available? Because the current one doesn't have the CFSS to PC conversion worksheet as an option to try. And I've had a lot of staff asking me what that's going to look like.
So we are working through that right now to determine the when, and we don't have an answer for that for you for today.
Okay, thank you.
And I think what we'll do is we will take one more question, Taryn Wood, and then again, we will make sure that we get this section finished. And if we get to about 3:15 and we have time left, then I will let you ask questions until it's time for the break. So Taryn Wood, off mute, please.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
All right, sweet. So I have been listening to the workarounds that we have to do in making notes on the screening documents. However, our documents, the assessment report does go to people in the community for their services. When they are receiving services that don't align with what the assessment report is stating, will there be guidance from DHS on how to deal with that, and then the appeals that would most likely come from that?
So we'd ask you to document anything going to the person, what the change in case mix would be and why. I mean, again, you're gonna describe that, you know, this person has a case mix. You can do that in a narrative. You can describe more information about to make sure, especially if it results in a decrease in budget, you know, you're gonna wanna make sure that, well, if it results, you'd be doing that in your notice of action too. But as assessors, you need to make sure that you're communicating that to the person.
Which is great, but and I understand that, but I just want to let you know that a lot of people in the community base a lot of the information off of what the MnCHOICES assessment outcome is. And if an assessor is typing in that there is an issue, a lot of people, especially with dual diagnosis, with mental health, they become very upset by what is written in the document. So I guess I'm just wondering how DHS plans to deal with that and the backlash from the community.
Thank you, Taryn, for that. I mean, I'm writing it down as a note, Beth. I think what we could do is take Taryn's concern back.
We'll know that we're aware, and it is something that we try not to do manual workarounds when we can.
Including your name and phone number, and I will return your call.
So with that, I would like to make sure everyone's on mute again, and then let's go ahead and go through the next slides, and then again, we'll just keep doing this. Go ahead, Beth.
Okay. All right, everybody. So let's talk about the DD screening document. We have two things that you have to watch out for on the DD screening document. Well, not necessarily watch out, or just, well, things that we have to do, things that we want you to know about the DD screening document. So we're going to go into the first one. The first one is about mobility. So in our current tool and our current policy is that for children under 24 months, we calculate a score of 99 for mobility. And in the revision, there's a current known issue that it actually will calculate a score for people 0 to 24 months and give that person an actual score versus just the 99. And so this is what you need to be aware of. If you're doing an assessment for somebody who you're also going to enter in a DD screening document for, you need to be aware that if they're under 24 months, that you need to change on the LT, or not on the LTC, on the DD screening document, the score from whatever it may have calculated it to be to a 99 until the child's over 24 months. And then you can let the system work its magic and make that determination. So that one's pretty straightforward. And then we'll go on to the next one, which is equally as straightforward, but it's just a little, anyways, we'll talk through it. So if somebody is under 18, we're used to saying, putting the parent. So when we're going through the person profile, for a person with developmental disabilities, we now have on our DD screening document, we can say that the parent is the guardian, and that's how it calculates on the DD screening document. But in order to get that functionality to work for us on the DD screening document, that's a handed field on the DD screening document itself. But we have a workaround that we want you to use in a person's profile. And this is just in general, because it doesn't matter if the person's a child or an adult child. We want you to not say that the person has, or that the parent is the person's legal representative. We want you to change that to say that the person has a guardian. And so under 18, you'd say the person has a guardian, even though you know the parent is their legal rep. And then you'd include the note in the text box saying the parent is the guardian. And this will allow the system to function as intended until we can make a change to this. So we can go on to our next slide, and I'm going to hand it over to Merritt. I'm sure you guys are tired of me talking. So go ahead, Merritt. You get started on the HELPS brain injury.
Thanks, Beth. As Beth said, my name is Merritt Oberg. I'm also part of the MnCHOICES team, policy team, and I'm going to review the HELPS brain injury screening document with you today. So as you can see on the slide, there's a description, or the section P within the HELPS may score display scores incorrectly. So a list of symptoms will display and are selectable even if you answer no to the question. Do you experience any of these problems in your daily life since you hit your head? Next slide, please. So if no is selected in section P, the symptom selections display when they should not. So if you select no, the assessor should not be able to select those symptoms. And the number of symptoms selected under check all that apply will count towards the total score. So even if you select no, but you have a couple symptoms selected, it will count the number of symptoms versus disregarding that if the answer to P is no. Next slide. So if no is chosen for do you experience any of these problems in your daily life since you hit your head, the person will not require a referral. So as I kind of explained earlier, the scoring notes say a HELP screening is considered positive for a possible BI when the following 3 items are identified. So an event that could have caused a brain injury, and then it tells you if the response to H, E, or S under or within the HELP screening guide are yes. If there's a period of consciousness or of being dazed and confused, so yes to the L or E sections of that HELP screening, and the presence of 2 or more chronic problems listed under P that were not present before the injury.
So we will be moving to LTC screening document after this. I just want to make sure that let's take 3 questions during this time, and then we will move on to it. And again, my goal is if we have time at the end of this section of assessment before we take a break, I'll allow for more questions. Again, it's more about just me wanting to make sure that everybody has a chance to present the material and that we don't run out of time. So I see we have 3 hands raised. Let's go ahead and start with Katie Benson, please.
You're muted.
Go ahead, Katie, you're unmuted. Katie, we can hear you. Well, go ahead and put Katie back on mute. Let's go to Sarah Hickman. Sarah, you're
Hi.
off mute.
Oh,
Hi.
thank you. My question is just about the age with this past section. When you say 18, can the directions be updated to be specific about is it 18 and under, or is it really 17 years old and 11 months and 31 days?
Well, we're saying younger than 18. And so, yes, you're right. It can be up to 18, up to the point.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
just to piggyback on what Taryn said, if we're going to be using your documentation as evidence for direction to an appeal, all of those details really, really matter.
This is only in the person profile that you'll want, and we'll say guardian, but yes, understood.
Well, it's guardian. Yep, I get that, but I'm also talking about the age. Do you get what I mean?
Right.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm gonna go ahead and let's take Sarah Gilson.
Hi, yes. My question is in regards to the mini cog assessment that we're supposed to do in replacement of the MSE. The trainings don't really go over that form very well. And with determining someone's eligibility for nursing facility level of care, someone with a score of 10 could automatically qualify for nursing facility level of care, but it hasn't really been described on how we're supposed to determine it from the mini cog. And then along with that, with the peacetime emergency order ending in May, and we have up to 6 months from that date to do in-person assessments, how are we supposed to do the mini cog form to have someone draw clocks?
Okay, so I will take that one back as it isn't part of content today, and we will have someone get back to you. Thank you. Katie
Appreciate it.
Benson, please.
Katie, you're on mute.
Katie, you are off mute. Katie, you are off mute. Mung, please go ahead and put Katie back on mute, and Sarah Hickman.
Sorry,
Sarah, you're up.
I didn't unraise
Okay, you
my
just
hand.
didn't take your hand off. Yep, I
Yeah,
got it.
sorry about that.
It's okay. That's what I thought too. Katie Benson, do you have a question? I see your hand raised. Okay, we are gonna put Katie back on mute. We will take Stephanie's last question and then we will go to the next piece.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Okay, perfect. I'm just wondering if you can clarify for managed care. We have to complete these case mix workarounds and figure out how to make them nursing facility level of care and elderly waiver eligible before we can complete the assessment and open the support plan fully.
Correct. Well, it's part of completing the assessment, yes. So you'll need to, if your person falls into one of those categories, you'll need to check to make sure that the case mix is accurate prior to closing the assessment. And then if there are if there's a change that affects the support plan, you'll have to make that update as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Beth, let's go ahead and move on to the next section, please.
Okay.
So hang on a sec. I see I've got Amy on the
Yeah.
first slide 70. So Amy, you go ahead.
Sure, I can take this one. It's pretty simple. So what we're going to cover are these 4 bullets, and I'm going to start with the marital status. So not all marital statuses populate in the marital status field. So if the marital status is other, common law, or living with partner, so when you're in the person profile and you're selecting their marital status, if you select other, common law, or living with partner, when you get to your LTC screening document, the marital status will show as blank. It won't map over. And these marital statuses were taken from this set of like DHS data standards that all systems have the same selection, so they're able to easily run data across different systems. And so those are where these selections came from, but they don't map over, there aren't those, so those selections are not options on the LTC screening document. So if you select other, common law, or living with partner, when you go to the screening document, it'll show you right here what you'll need to edit them as. So if it's common law on the screening document, you'll say single. If it's other, you'll say unknown. And if it's living with partner, you'll say single. So that is that one. And then I think this one I'll pass back to Beth.
Okay, so this next one is about the LTC screening document. When you're doing a remote assessment for somebody's 65th birthday, and so you are going to get an incorrect activity type. it's going to display as a 12 versus an activity type 08. 08 is the activity type on the LTC screening document for a 65th birthday. And so you'll need to manually make that change to allow for the document to be entered into MMIS. If you try to enter it with a 12, it is not going to work. So MMIS is going to stop you too. But you'll need to just make that change for a 65th birthday assessment that's completed remotely. If you just complete a regular 65th birthday assessment and you say it's in person, it'll show the right activity type for you. So then we're going to go on to section E of the LTC screening document. So this is about PCA complex. So I'm sure you all know that there was a legislative change for the enhanced rate for PCA, that it went from 12 hours per day down to 10 hours per day. So people who are eligible at 10 hours per day, or people who are now eligible for the enhanced rate of PCA at 10 hours a day, the system is still calculating at 12. So you have to be aware that if somebody has high needs and is likely to require personal assistance, that you will need to make this change manually on the LTC screening document. So just be aware that the rule is the same. If it's 12 hours, you'll need to change it, or if it's 10 hours or more, excuse me, between 10 and 12, you'll need to make the change. If it's over 12, it will calculate it correctly for you. All right, and then going on to the next screening document, or the next LTC in section E. This one, this is just the directions that you're changing it on the LTC. The section E on the Alt4 screen, if you're used to talking MMIS speak, would be that you're changing it to a Y. So you're changing it from an N to a Y to make the person eligible. On the LTC screening document for MMIS, you'll communicate to the person and the case manager so that they're aware that that is an option for the person. And then going on to the last part about this is talking through on the LTC screening document. There's a section for Medicare Part A and Part B. And that section, typically what's entered into MMIS is 99. So you'll see that they usually have an end date of 99. It has the correct start date that you're eligible for Medicare, but it doesn't have an end date. But our system, the revision won't allow for this date to be entered. And so you'll just have to make that manual change. We can go through two directions and talk through the specifics of what the manual change is on the next slide. Okay. Oh, sorry. I might have an extra slide. So what we'd like you to do is for the Medicare Part A and B fields, change enter the same date as the person's start date into the end date. So in both of those fields, again, handcraft and communicate. And when entering into MMIS, add a message saying the Medicare Part A or Part B fields were hand-corrected in the notes for MMIS entry. And then we can go on to questions regarding the LTC screening document.
I see that Alexandra has her hand up. Go ahead, Alexandra.
Hi, I'm wondering for all the hand corrections, if an assessor or a waiver case manager is making those hand corrections, how would an SNBC care coordinator that goes into just the computer system know that those corrections are made? Will it also be our responsibility to review the case notes, or will there be something else that we should do?
So that's why it's important that any hand corrections are made as an attachment, so you'd be able to see in the person's record if there are attachments that you'd be able to see there and see the correction. Reviewing the assessment summary, because it should be documented for the person, so you could see that it's there as well, would be another place that it would be fairly clear that there's a change that would affect what it is. what you would need to know as a care coordinator.
Thank you.
So go ahead, Trista. You may ask your question.
You are muted.
You are off mute. Trista, you are off mute if you would like to ask a question. So you
Oh,
have your
sorry.
hands
Can
raised.
you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's all right.
Yeah, on the last slide, it mentions that these corrections are for like AC, and I think there was one other program that was listed there. So does that mean like for Medicare end dates, if we're doing an assessment for someone who only has PCA services, for example, do we not have to do these corrections?
You do not. It's only for people who are on AC or ECS, so Essential Community Services. So only those two programs. So otherwise it doesn't relate to any disability waivers or EW.
Okay, thank you.
And folks, please know we have some time the next time after this is break. And remember, I said to you that we would allow you to ask other questions about the content that we've reviewed. We have some time. And so I want to make sure that if you have a question leading up to anything that we have talked about prior to this section, that you are welcome to ask them. And then when those are done, I will watch the time to make sure we stay timely, and then we will have time for a break. Lana, I see your hand up. Go ahead. Once Monk takes you, there you go. You're off mute.
Hi there. Yes, so my understanding that, so far that you've said is that these edits or these faults, I guess, in this system right now, we're not sure if they're going to be corrected by launch. Is that what I'm understanding? Like, so these are correct, these are fixes that could be potentially issues in the actual launch after April 3rd, correct?
Yeah, we are sharing these with you because they will not be fixed by launch. We're making you aware of them so that you can do the workarounds that are required so that you can do your work in the application.
Okay. I guess another question, and forgive me if I'm asking out of turn or whatever, but I'm just really curious, like with all of these edits and issues and workarounds, like how realistic, I guess, is it that launch can happen in April, I guess?
We are moving forward with the current functionality document and its workarounds as we're moving to launch.
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, you said we're still launching even with the workarounds, correct?
Yeah, it is custom in the MnCHOICES application when there are workarounds to create a document like this and to have people use it for workarounds until the release fixes it. Then we remove those from the document when a release fixes it and announce that the release has made the change. So if you're not used to doing it, if you haven't done this before, that's what we do, but we're on target for launch on April the 3rd.
Okay, yeah, this is new to me. I'm coming from an MCO world.
Yeah, well, that's why I thought I would explain a little bit more because
I
I thought, oh,
appreciate
you
that.
don't have any context. Yep, you're welcome.
Right, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the next person. I see Danetta. Danetta, will you go ahead, please?
My question, so we have this current functionality and workarounds document that you guys are reviewing in this training today. It doesn't seem like there's any like workflow kind of play by play outside of what we're getting from the training. Will there be any additional documents to support these workarounds so that staff can kind of walk themselves through these processes directly?
Can you say a little bit more about what would be useful for you, Danetta, please?
Specifically on those case mix adjustments and kind of the distinguishable hand correcting. There's multiple steps in these processes. and you get more familiar as you do them when you encounter the situations, but it would be helpful to have visuals with these and not just kind of what's being conveyed verbally.
Okay, I hear you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. So I will go next to Angela Dostal.
I have to disagree with what you said earlier that this is a normal part of launch. I know I was here for the first launch of MnCHOICES. Yes, there was issues. I'm not saying it was a perfect process by any accounting at all. However, you know, as a new worker coming into this at that time, I can tell you I did not catch a lot of the mistakes that the seasoned workers caught. And I believe with the vast amount of problems that you're reporting today, that's very concerning to me moving forward.
So Angela, I'm sorry that you took it the way that you thought I said it. I was just speaking specifically about the document and how documentation is presented. So I hear your concern and we will take it back. But just please know what I was specifically speaking to is having a current functionality document and providing the workarounds is a normal part of the support MnCHOICES team provides. So thank you for that. Could we go ahead and then move to Ruth's question, please?
You're on mute.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. I guess I just wanted to reflect concern. It's not just MCOs that would have difficulty with this. There's so many workarounds in here to even remember what's going to be a workaround. It just, in my opinion, is unacceptable to launch with all this, all these workarounds. It's very difficult. I just want to express my concern and that I don't know that we will be ready to handle that when it launches.
Thank you, Ruth. I have noted that in my notes.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's go ahead and, sorry, I'm seeing people go up and down on the list. Let's do Ashley Seafred next. I'm hoping I didn't massacre your last name, Ashley.
Thank you, Teresa. It's Seifried. So my question is, for our initial assessment, currently the tool, I know that the MTC that would not allow our initial assessors to select whether MA is pending. Are you saying that the production will allow assessors to do that and then to proceed with their processing their assessments?
I don't know if anybody from policy wants to answer that or ask Ashley any other questions. It was a little bit hard to hear you.
Oh, let's see if I can, maybe I can repeat. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, I can. Thank you. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
My question is that for initial assessments, oftentimes our recipients do not have MA opened at the time of the assessment. So we send our cases to what we call a middle ground. And so our middle ground will be holding those cases until MA gets open, whether, you know, waiting for SMRT or, you know, waiting for verifications. So with the current training zone, it would not allow assessors to select MA pending. So they have to select MALTC in order for them to proceed with their assessment. Would that be a change in the production zone with MA pending selection?
So this is Amy. So they're able, you know, if it's pending, they're just going to say that they don't have MA, and you know, because it's either they have it or they don't, right? So even if it's pending, they don't have it. So you would say they didn't, and then you would continue on. And if they got their MA eligibility prior to, you know, the timeline that you'd still have the assessment open, then it would be the workaround that we talked about earlier, where you'd close the assessment and then reopen another one so that that MA eligibility would auto-populate from Swindex or from MMIS. And so if it's pending, you're just going to select that they don't have it. We have taken this down as like a future enhancement option that, you know, is a pending result, but right now, if it's either if they have it, you say they have it, and if it's pending, then you say they don't have it, and then you can go and update that if they do end up getting it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's going to create tremendous amount of work for us with Ramsey County because majority, I'd say more than 90% of our recipients do not have MA at the time of the assessment. So, which means that, you know, we will do the assessment and then we send out the assessment result to the recipient saying that they're not eligible for program. And then 3 months down the road, we have to open it the same assessment, you know, stating that MA is now open. And now, so that's tremendous amount of work for us. And so is there any enhancements soon for that? Because I think like it's not just Ramsey County, but I feel like that's a lot of counties, you know, especially with initial assessments. We don't have people coming to us with MA opened.
I'm not sure what the option of having pending, I guess I'm not understanding how that would help. So in those instances, are you doing eligibility updates for those folks, or are you talking about that they get MA within the, because you're still able to do an eligibility update if they don't have the MA within that first 60 days.
Right, but if they have MA within that 60 days, which means we have to go back to that same assessment and reopen the same assessment. But what I'm saying is that right now, we have them as MA pending until MA gets open. And then once MA gets open, we just, you know, move, you know, I mean, open the person up, not having to do another assessment, is what I'm saying. So if you're saying that we can't, you know, if you're saying that right now, you know, when we move to the revised MnCHOICES, we do the assessment and the person don't have MA, we're telling them they're not eligible, yes, at that time, but we're still holding on to those cases until MA gets open.
And if it's within the 60, yeah, I understand. If it's within the 60 days, then you would go in and you wouldn't have to do a whole nother assessment. You could copy it, you know, you copy the information over and then that information would populate. And if it's not within that 60 days, then you're doing the eligibility update, correct? So I know you're holding on to them just for those 60 days. And prior, when you were just selecting that MA was pending, you weren't going back in and changing anything in the system when they got MA? I might need to have you maybe put more detail in and submit it in through the help desk form so we can maybe provide some more, you know, detailed information to you, or you guys can give us more detailed information about your process.
Because we're able to put them right now as MA pending. We're able to do that and move on. And then once MA gets open, we send them a notice telling them that MA is now open and waiver is open. So, but with the current process, we are not even have that opportunity to say that MA is pending.
Yeah.
Because
so yeah, Ashley, if you would do me a favor and submit in a help desk ticket with a little more explanation as well as you know, what you feel you need to better understand, then then the policy team can look at it and get back to you about it specifically, since it's more about, it's about policy and functionality both, I guess. And so we would want to be able to look at them together and have a discussion with policy together. So Mung, will you put Ashley back on mute and let's go ahead and take Bree.
Right. And Teresa, I'll just say one more thing about that. You know, we did mention this is something that, you know, is that we will be making a change to in the future, that you'll be able to change the MA. But I'm not quite getting maybe the pending thing. So yeah, having more information would be very helpful, and then we can provide some more assistance. So thanks.
So Bree, go ahead. You are off mute.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. I just was going to follow up, you know, with documents that might help us, you know, with these issues and everything like that that we're doing, since it will be fixed before launch, I know right now we utilize like the known issues document, and I apologize if I missed this earlier, but is that something that we're going to be able to utilize? Like, is there going to be something similar, or
This is considered the known issues document.
okay, yeah, I guess my only suggestion would be like maybe something similar to the current known issues, just because, you know, I printed out the PowerPoint and I'm writing on it and everything like that. But right now, you know, when somebody comes to me as a mentor and is like, hey, I'm having this problem, you know, how can I fix it, or what should I do? If I don't know it off the top of my head, that link is so helpful just to go click, scroll, you know, have it like organized so that it's easy to find and pull from. And I know it's temporary. This won't be like a ongoing fix, but just it's so nice and easy just to grab it, click.
Yeah, thank you. So we do have it in the Help Center as a document, and that's where it's going to live going forward. And so, Amy, I don't know if you can bring up the Help Center and just quick show that so that Bree can see it.
Sure.
So that they would have it available, because I think that's what you're asking, right, Bree?
Yeah, just something like, so, you know, each of these pages has its own little organization of what's going on and how to fix it. And that's what we have in the current known issues, but it's more like bulleted almost, where it's easier to find instead of sifting through, you know, 100 and some pages of PowerPoint.
Correct. Correct. Yes, there is such a
Okay.
document. And so I'm going to have him put you back on mute, but we'll show you,
Sure.
okay?
Okay,
So
great.
you
Thanks.
go to the Help Center, and then you'll go to in the search attachments. Amy, will you? Yep, you can see it's right there at the very top. It says current functionality version 2, and you can view it and download it both. And so rather than it sitting on County Link, it will actually sit in the system. So everyone has access to it. Everyone can find it. Yep, it's coming. It's just slow today. So you can either view it and or you can download it. You can see she has both there. And when you look down below, it's got a table of contents. When you do download, you can click on it and click to each of the different sections and read through it. So we realize that this is a going through by PowerPoint may seem a little daunting. We're going through it because you specifically asked if we could go through each of them and demo the ones that we could. And so we're taking the opportunity to do that, but you can always go back to this document and look at it and refer people to it. So with that, I would like to give Hannah a chance to speak. Could you please take Hannah off mute? Hannah, you are off mute.
Hi, I wanted to make sure that I was understanding one of those slides right. I don't know what page it was on, but my ears kind of perked up with the hand correcting and then resubmitting in. That just seems like a lot of work for our already huge caseloads. I just feel like that's an unrealistic expectation for this upcoming launch for our case managers to have to print, hand correct, and then submit it in. That could be a lot of extra work for us as case managers doing the assessments.
We will take your concern down. Thank you. Let's go ahead and go to Michelle Fisher, please. Michelle, you are off mute.
Thank you. I just wanted to, one comment is that it's often difficult to hear your callers. So if you would repeat their questions, that would be helpful. Because I hear you saying that it's difficult sometimes for you to hear. So it's very much so for the listeners. I guess I would agree with the speaker from Ramsey County with the long-term care MA issue. It's not just a Ramsey issue, it's going to be a statewide issue that will affect hundreds of assessors, as well as the hand correcting, the case mix issues, the HRAs. I mean, it's all very concerning at this point, and I feel that the MnCHOICES launch is unacceptable with all of these workarounds that are going to be required and require hours and hours of additional work.
I have your concerns noted, Michelle. Thank you. Let's go ahead and take Shannon Swenson. I believe partial of the last name is cut off. So sorry, Shannon.
Hi there, Teresa. I have a few things, and number one, a few questions back, somebody was talking about the initial launch, and I know that we're anxious to get this going, and I have been involved since the very beginning of this whole process. And one of the things that really was helpful back when we did the first launch was that we didn't do everything at one time. Quite honestly, this whole thing, I'm practically having heart palpitations thinking about it because we have so much. The volume has increased because we are doing all the PCA assessments. We're doing everything, and everybody has that has an issue. They come in and they want an assessment, and so because of that, I feel expecting us to do all the different things. We just did LTC to start with when we did that, and we weren't doing the DD. I mean, it was just such a smaller pair. Could we not be doing something more like that? And then sticking with the old system longer until we can get everything more together. I just feel we're really, I mean, we're gonna all drown here with this system not being working as it should be. So that's
So
my first comment.
Shannon,
Yeah.
so I want to make sure I repeat back since I heard someone say it's hard for people to hear. So your concern is about doing everything all at one time, and is there a way to kind of come into the system doing pieces of it? In the last MnCHOICES communication, there was a communication about extending the date out another through August, and then having 10% of the staff in, and then 30% of the staff in, and then 100% of the staff in. And we're hoping that some of that will allow you to come into the system and work your way in through that time period. So that was part of the reason why that was done, because we were hearing that and we were allowing for that kind of moving into the system over a little bit longer period of time.
So along with that, Teresa, though, is I think having a consistent guidance on what that might look like. So when you're saying that, does that mean then we could just choose to do 10% of our new assessments, and then everybody could continue with the old system until we get more, and then, in a month add more and keep building it? Or are we, if we do that and we still don't have any ending to these workarounds, I mean, then we're just kind of hanging there forever anyhow.
Yep, I hear that to be your concern. And I think the reason why they just picked the percentage of staff was to allow agencies to determine kind of how they were going to do that transition without kind of dictating transition. And so, yep, I hear that. And I mean, please remember, right, this is recorded, so it'll be available for our folks to listen to too.
Um, and then the other thing is with the MTZ AWS platform that's been talked about coming out for what, the last 3 weeks or so. We have about 37 days before launch. And what that last memo I saw was that if you work in the old system, it's not transferring over into the new system. So what can we do with that? I mean, we don't want to have to go back into another system and start over. Is there something that's going to be able to, that I'm not aware of, that's going to be able to cover that overlap? Because again, our time is pretty limited. I don't know about the rest of the state, but we've been pretty busy. And so this extra time in waiting is really kind of creating a little bit of a challenge for us.
Yep, I can't speak to that because I am not policy. I don't know if anyone on our team would like to speak to that and would like to be put off mute. Otherwise, I will just take your concern back and go to the next person. And so I would like to, if I could, Shannon, we'll put you back on mute and I will move to Sue Nelson, but thank you for your comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi. Yep.
Hi. So I have two questions. The mini cog, the screening doc currently is set up to put in the numbers from the John Brown Market Street. Is that going to be changed to the numbering system, and I don't know the new MnCHOICES by heart. And maybe we just need to keep using John Brown until the screening doc changes. I don't know. That's one question. Second one is
MnCHOICES, oh,
go ahead.
sorry, I can answer your first question. MnCHOICES, it has been programmed into MMIS. You can see it is just not live necessarily yet. So all of that is there and will be in place.
Oh, it will
for
be
when
live.
MnCHOICES is.
Yep. So the
Yep.
screening doc entry will be live for the new MnCHOICES numbering results, whatever those are. We'll have to review that form. Can you right off the top of your head tell me what DHS number that is so I pulled it once, but I'd like to get it again.
I can't off the top of my head, but I will look it up and get it to you in just a second.
Okay. My second question is I'm a bit confused by the case mix J that might really be a I. A J case mix is when they do have a severe neurological diagnosis. And it used to just be triggered by putting a yes on the yes/no question on the screening doc of do they have a neurological diagnosis, yes or no. And if you put a yes, it would generate a J on the screening doc. So on slide 41, when you first discuss it, you say, if you get a J result, check if all of these conditions are true. And the first one is they need the eating score of 03 or 04, and the neuromuscular condition says that that was met. But then your second bullet says that the person does not have a diagnosis of neuromuscular condition.
So there's the defect, right? So that's what it is that we're having you go through to do. If you didn't check that they did it, the system will say they did because of what is happening with the complex health section. And so
that's
we're working
the next
to
screen,
fix
though.
that. Right. But that is this one is very complex. And so it really is just going through to check to make sure that you didn't indicate that the person had a neuromuscular diagnosis, because the complex is going to say that it is a neuromuscular diagnosis. So that is what's triggering that, and we need to unhinge those things so that if you say that the person has a neuromuscular diagnosis, that's the deal, and then it'll correctly trigger it.
All right, so that second bullet, you're saying if we checked they do not have a neuromuscular condition, it might still trigger a J, and it shouldn't.
Correct.
And where is that
Correct.
answer in, what section is that in? On the, what domain is that second bullet?
Eating.
It's all under eating?
Eating. Well, eating is neuromuscular. Yes. Yep. That is all right there. Does the person have an eating or it's issues with eating? So that's why that section is kind of on its own, because there's a big clump of questions that you're asking about eating and meal prep.
Yeah, and I'm just sorting out your first screen. So in eating, there is a question that says, do they have a neurological condition? And if we say no, it's still going to trigger a J.
If you say no with an issue with eating in complex, the complex area, sorry, that is where it's going to trigger a J versus when it shouldn't. So it's really, we want to have it focus on, the defect is that it needs to focus on neuromuscular and the scores and everything else that would compromise a J or comprise of a J. And it's not, so it's going to an I. So that's when you'll see it.
Wow, I'm still not quite following you, Beth. I know that if we get a case mix J, we need to look at it to make sure it's correct. But in the past, it was generated by was putting a yes in the neuromuscular box on the screening doc, and then on the LTCC.
Correct,
It wasn't
correct, but
connected
now
to eating and complex health.
Right, and so there were other things, and that's what I'm saying is the defect here, that there were connections made that we didn't intend, and so we are going to. That's why it's on this list that we're fixing as a defect. Let me get. So I did get your form for you, and it is DHS 3428M.
3428
and that's for everybody who would like to.
M. Okay.
So anybody who'd like to take a look at the mini cog and the scoring and directions, all of that is in the 32 or 3428, sorry. So the LTC screening document in that list is M for mini cog is what
Thank
you're
you.
looking for.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So back to my J, if I have someone coming through as a J and I know they don't have a severe neurological diagnosis, I should go back and look at eating and complex health areas to make sure that we've checked no to all those.
No, it's not about changing your assessment results because you can not have a neuromuscular condition and have a complex health need in eating or with eating. So you can have that, but the system is going to tell you that it's a J, and you're going to go through and say, okay, wait, you don't have a neuromuscular diagnosis. I need to change this from a J to an I.
I got it. So they could still have issues with eating, but it's not related. Okay. So we really need to look at what their diagnosis is. And I know from way back, I have a list of the severe neurologic diagnosis that would trigger that J.
Right. Well, and you could also, take a look at the case mix. So the 3428B, as in Bob, that still is a guidance document for you too. So that might help.
And 3428B?
B, yes.
Oh, that's the case mix worksheet. Okay. Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sue, very much. So we're going to go ahead and move to Sarah Hickman, please.
Hi there. My questions are about the LTCMA piece again. I think you had asked what would be helpful. I think having some MMIS screenshots of what MMIS has to look like in order for the MA to be blessed. I think what's really challenging, and I'm only going to speak from my perspective, is, assessors, we are not MA eligibility specialists. So when we have things so closely linked to our assessment and that we can't control, we get asked a lot of questions on what needs to happen before, the waiver can open as it relates to MA. And some of this, what you're asking for is gets me stressed out because we don't know. So how much of, our workflow is really dependent on that MA. And if you're telling us that we can't switch things, we can't open up a new assessment when the MA LTC is up and running, then that's going to be a hard thing to change. For an example, the ending of a U code, that oftentimes happens after we've already sent on our assessments to our waiver team to open to waiver. And then, so it would be helpful if you could tell us the system of steps that need to be done in order for that MA LTC completed, because we don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. We heard your concern. I have wrote notes down as well. And then, folks, I think we have all been at this for a while, and we all probably need a body break and a few other things, right? Take a walk around the living room, get a snack. Let's be back at, let's do 3:16. That gives us 10 minutes, and then we will start again. So please go ahead, get yourself a break in, take a little bit of a walk and a stretch, and then we'll get back. Thank you. I'm going to put us all on mute. And Mung, make sure we're all on mute, except for me, so that I can get back when I need to. Thanks.
Hi, this is Lori Davis calling back from Wright County.
Lori,
Lori
we
Davis?
can hear you. We can hear you,
Oh,
Lori.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just didn't want you to talk about anything you didn't want anyone else to hear.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, I don't think others. To get in there and start. Well, Mike agreed with me, but you know, DD is always trying to circumvent the agenda.
Totally different.
I know, maybe I should ask. Give that R69.
Morning. Hey. Some waffles? Yeah. Oh, I'm using Mrs. Butterworth's. Is that okay, or should I only be getting syrup from your head? Cutting thing with, yeah, listen, you can go back to work whenever you want. I'm saying I'm betraying our whole marriage.
Hey, Mung, can you make sure people stay muted? I don't think they realize that they're not, so I can see folks aren't muted and we're hearing them for background.
Okay, look, I realized that I was being.
I'm still hearing another person, so just so you know.
That gives me attention, makes me feel good. And
Can you force them to be muted?
It's thinking, isn't it? It's Brad, my trainer from the gym. Okay, fine.
I'm unable to mute. Is it Yote Betel? We're hearing your conversation and I can't mute you.
Well, say hi to Laura. Say hi to Brad.
Mung, are you available? I can see there are several people that aren't on mute. Julie Warbrook, you're not on mute either. If you want to put yourself on mute, just so you don't accidentally share sounds with people that you don't necessarily need them to hear. Sorry, folks, I'm not calling you out. And just for some reason, we're not able to seem to solidly mute you out. And I just don't want you in a place where you're sharing sound you don't mean to share. Okay, we are at 3:16. I want to go ahead and have us go forward because otherwise we are going to run out of time for today. So we are set to move to the next bit of slides.
All right,
Again,
well, we're starting
Mung,
again, so.
Mung, can you
Yep.
please mute
All right,
people?
bye.
Please know that you're still not on mute, some folks, and you need to check your sound. So is the team back and ready to go? We are on slide 77. Amy, are you willing to go ahead and move the slides forward? We have Beth doing the next several slides and then Rakia doing a slide as well. Are we ready to go?
Yeah, I think we're ready to go, Teresa.
Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So I am willing to do this one. So this is something that you've been aware of for some time. Go ahead. Is Beth going to say something? Someone else saying something?
Yeah, sorry, Teresa. I fell for the double mute. I'm bad.
Okay, you're set.
Hi, everybody. I'm back. Yeah, I'm good. Welcome back. Now we get to move on to the support plan. So we're going to just talk through some things that are happening with the support plan and some just defects that we want you to be aware of and know that we're aware of and that we are working on making changes to accommodate them. So our first slide, we're talking about that support plan effective dates. They default to greater than 1 year. So if you put in 12/1/22, it's going to default to 12/1/23. So your workaround here is really just to change the start date. We know that in our system, we say from 12/1/22, we know that that service agreement or that plan year, that support plan, that effective date will be 11/30/23. And so you'll just need to make that change. You can click on the calendar and just move it up a day. You can type it in, however works best for you, but you'll just need to know that that's, and be aware that you'll make that change. So we can move on to our next one. That one is pretty straightforward, and that's anytime you're creating a support plan that you're going to see that. So the next one is, this is for anybody who's just receiving DD Rule 185 case management. And so this is not anybody who is on a waiver, anybody who is just those folks that are solely doing Rule 185 case management. And The question, so really what this is so we ask every year if the person is choosing to waive their assessment, we ask those questions on the current 6791D, which is the support plan signature page. We ask those questions of whether or not the person would like to waive their assessment, and then we make sure that it's an informed choice on the signature page. And so what is happening with the signature page of the support plan is that it is displaying it's displaying those questions regardless of whether or not the person is choosing to waive. So what we want to do, what you'll need to do in order to close out the signature page and meet that your completion requirements is that you will need to answer no when the person doesn't waive an assessment. So you'll just answer no to those questions. It is just, it's a drop down that you'll just go through and you can tab through. But we just wanted you to be aware that you are going to see it. And what the response is when you do. The next one.
Let's have Rakia answer this one if we can, please.
Yeah, Rakia, this one is for, I was just wondering that.
Yep, I can speak to this one. So for the care coordination next steps indicator report, so within the support plan HRA and the support plan MCO MnCHOICES assessment, there's a specific print option for the care coordination next steps indicator report. And currently this report is missing values in some fields, and it displays values in other fields when there's no data entered in the HRA or the MnCHOICES assessment MCO. So at this time, instead of relying fully on this report, the care coordinator would just need to review the information that's in the HRA or the MnCHOICES assessment with the staying healthy to ensure that all steps and any follow-up is identified and documented when you're building your support plan.
Thank you, Rakia. So Beth, I believe these next ones are yours as well, right?
Yes, well, I can go through them, that's fine. Okay. So as we're looking at support plan services and supports, we've got a few things that we want to make sure that you're aware of. And the first one, so we can go, I'm not going to read the list to you, we're going to go through them in detail. So the first one is about service line dates and rate inputs. So as we've talked about and as you've done in your training, you know that the support plan has a revise function. And as you're going through and revising, it'll copy the information from your previous support plan in that current year to your next support plan in that current year. But what happens when you're there is that the service line dates, and if you entered in rates, rate inputs, so if someone is receiving the service of CRS, that they might, that those inputs don't come over into the revised support plan. And so we'll want to make sure that as you're revising support plans that you are aware of that and know that you'll need to re-enter information in and run rates when you're revising a support plan. Jan, I don't know if you want to jump in. Am I missing anything here? Did we cover it?
Hi, this is Jan Buck from Fiscal Policy. Beth, you covered it. As you know, if you read the transition direction, it'll tell you just to enter the service that you're changing versus all of them until the actual reassessment. But this is a high priority to get fixed. It is a pain point we are very, very aware of. So I think we can go to the next slide.
Thanks, Jan. Okay, so this next one is about raising codes and ordering MPI. So this will only happen in a couple of situations. And currently, well, to be honest, I'm wondering, so reason codes are lines that you enter at the service line level, so codes, numbers, 3-digit codes that you enter at the service line letter or level that informs MMIS that MMIS should do something. So it's used a lot with type B service authorizations. Let's say if people are entering in a reason code, they're entering in that reason code to send a notice of action. There are other reasons why you might enter in a reason code. It directs MMIS to do something. Just for a little background with what those are. And to then, so what will happen, and also there are certain services that require an ordering NPI, specifically, nursing. So home care nursing, skilled nursing, if they're on a waiver, I'm not talking about type B here, I'm talking just about waiver services. But if you're on a waiver, MMIS is going to require that ordering NPI number be entered. And so when you enter in that ordering NPI or a reason code, the system currently is applying all of those reason codes, you can only enter in 3, so it's not all, but it'll apply the reason code that you might have met for just one line. It'll apply to all of them. The same with ordering NPI, and so this is just to be aware of. It's just on the MMIS service agreement report, so it's nothing that goes to the person. It's just information that is, it'll just clutter up your MMIS report. So whoever is entering in just needs to be aware that they would disregard reason codes and ordering NPI when it's not applicable to the service. And MMIS will help them with that as well. So this is just an FYI to be aware of, that you're going to see it. We know it exists. And you can make a change to it if you're passing your MMIS agreement report to a case aide, you can make a change to it, and so that they have that awareness that they don't need to enter those in. But I think that that this is a pretty easy one just to disregard, or to know that it exists, but disregard that you have to enter it into MMIS. It won't affect anything else in the system. Okay, so next, so this is directions, which I just went through, that you can make a change. So it's telling you to make a change. But again, if it's for the person, if you're not entering it into MMIS either yourself, or if your case aide's not familiar, make the change for those fields. We will know when we see it that it is not applicable. Let's go on to CFSS. So the support plan will display, I want to make sure that I'm going to speak about this correctly. So the support plan, the support plan will display eligibility for CFSS in the support plan. So if somebody it's the same thing for support plan going to a rating of PQ or R, that you'll want to make sure to, as a case manager, so I've got my case manager hat on, I am going to want to refer back to that worksheet that assessor completed to know that what my directions are for my support plan, but also know that if I need to change that for the person, because this information will come over from the assessment, and so you may need to change that information in your support plan as well. And so it's making that change for MMIS, it's making that change for the person and on your support plan. So next we are going over to Adult Day, and I think, Jan, is this one yours?
I got it. Yep.
Okay.
So although effective January 1st, 2023, Adult Day can be provided remotely, DHS is not ready to implement that. Even though it's on the LTSS rate sheet, it's got a modifier. It's not ready. Specialty codes for the providers need to be added by DHS. So it's not in the current system or the new system. And hopefully this will happen for July. So just be aware that you just do it the way you do it now. Until it's addressed, authorize the Adult Day, not just regular, enter the HCPC and modifier associated with just standard adult days. So that's an easy fix. Temporary too. Next slide for me. So this is inconvenient, and it's a kind of a trick question, but for those staff that calculate rates, today when you calculate a rate, it is automatically a framework rate unless you select that it's an exception or a MAPC calculation for foster care, CRS, FRS. In the new platform, you have to answer yes or no. And so you will always say no unless it is for you have a DHS approved exception or it's an FRS or CRS MAPC appropriate calculation. That's the only two things that can be used anyway, but just be aware that in the new system, you will now have to answer, and you'll know right away if you did it wrong, because if you say yes, then other areas will populate and you'll be like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. So that's just a weird functionality that we're gonna hopefully get rid of. So next slide, please. And I think we turn it back to Teresa.
Yeah, you know what I would like to do here? Let's not stop and ask questions here. I would really like to get through the 24-hour customized living and then have time for questions if we could, please. And the reason being is I want to make sure that it gets the time it needs. And so let's do that first, and then we'll ask questions. And sorry, Amy, with your hand up, you'll have to wait a little longer, but you can keep your hand up. I just want to make sure we get through the 24-hour customized living in a timely manner and that there's time for questions. So I am assuming that Amy Rumpsa is getting herself on share.
Yeah, it says I can't share unless somebody makes me a presenter.
So Bong, will you please make Amy Rumpsa a presenter or whatever needs to be done so she can share? Amy, are you able to share?
Yep, I just got it. Hold on here. So I'm gonna first share, do it a little bit different. I'm gonna share the slide and then I'm gonna go into the actual, so you can see it in person while I'm actually in the tool. So basically there's a couple of different problems with 24-hour customized living eligibility, and it's happening in the support plan and also in the support plan with transition reason. So I'm going to split the two up. I'm going to start with just the one that is relevant to the support plan, and it's pretty small, but it's something that, like, if you, especially if you're new and you see that, you might be like, what, wait, what? So I'm going to go to okay, so this is one that's in progress here. So this support plan, I've already filled out some other things. So I'm just going to go directly to the tool once I can. Okay. Kind of slow today, huh? Okay. So when I get over here, and I've already I have my waiver provider in there, and here's my customized living tool. I've already completed it in the interest of time, but I just wanted to show you what can happen here. Okay, so there's a little bar down here called rate inputs, and that's what will allow you to look at what you've put into the tool. It's not all listed out here, so hopefully it'll come up here. There we go. So this is what it looks like as you're putting the information in. You guys should be familiar with this, the start and all that. So now, once you get down, oh, sorry. Oh, come on. All right, we're getting a little slow here. So right at the top, when you come into the Get Rate button, it's going to say right here, can the person use 24-hour customized living? That's always going to say yes. So when you go into doing a support plan, when you're not in the support plan with transition reason, that's just always going to say yes. So if you know that you're planning for and you added in regular customized living and you know the person isn't eligible for 24-hour CL, then just basically ignore that. So the rest of it will be at the end. It will tell you if you plan for 24-hour CL but you're not eligible. It'll tell you that at the end, and then you can just change the service. So that's, I think for the most part, from what I understand, is most of you guys, unless you're brand new, know whether your people are eligible for 24-hour CL or not. But obviously, this is going to help determine it for people that don't know.
Hey, Amy, will you do me a favor? Will you just talk a little bit louder? We're having a few people say that it's hard to hear you.
Oh, okay. Is this better?
Yep. You know, again, just maybe talk a little bit louder just to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want me to repeat what I just said?
Again, I think just you're feeling a little far away. Not terrible, but just if you're on a phone or something, it might be hard to hear you.
Okay, is this better? Can everybody hear me?
I think it's better, so you go ahead.
Okay. So, do you guys want me to repeat what I already went through? I'm just gonna, for the overall thing here is that this, when you go to do your plan, your tool, I mean, this type of customized living is always going to show a yes there. So, this is something that we will get fixed, because normally right when you get into the screen, it's actually going to tell you yes or no whether the person can do 20 or has the eligibility for 24-hour customized living. And that will, that determination will be made through screening document scores. So that's just something that we'll need to fix later on. So just ignore that. If you know you're trying to plan for regular 24-hour CL, or regular not 24-hour CL, that yes is still going to show. So just don't be thrown off by that. And let me slide my slides back over here. So this is kind of what I just showed you, is that it's always going to say yes here. So we just, okay, so, and this is, again, what I just kind of went over in when this is performing the way it should, later on down the road, you can look at that field and it'll be accurate about whether or not they're eligible for 24-hour CL. Okay, so I'm going to switch now to doing a support plan with a transition reason and how that affects the issue there is with that. So I'm going to go back to the application. I'm going to get out of here. Okay. I'm going to pick someone else for this one because I don't want to have to finalize this. Give me just a minute here. Okay, I'm getting there. Okay, so I'm just going to pick a different person. Do Joy Hurst here. Okay, so when you're doing a support plan with a transition reason, you're doing that because you don't have an assessment in the system that can pull data. So this is where how folks can find out whether or not people are eligible for 24-hour CL. And then I can show you that they're just an area that you just want to be careful on when you're filling it out. So I'm going to do a new form. Let's see here. It is really slow today. And I'm going to pick support plan there. And here's where you want to put transition plan. It's going to ask whether or not you need signatures. Oh, did I do this wrong, Teresa? 1 second here. Sorry, folks. I should have just queued this up to where I wanted it to be. Sorry, folks. I think I went into the wrong area here. All right. I'm going to just...
You might just have to go to the slide, Amy.
Yeah, I think so, because I'm not going to be able to...
Yep.
I don't want to waste anybody's time here going through that. Okay, so when you go into your transition support plan with transition reason, you'll be picking the transition plan, obviously. And then what's going to happen is you're going to be moving into this EW customized living and foster care worksheet. And again, you do this worksheet because you don't have any data in there for them to figure out, for the system to figure out whether or not they're eligible for 24-hour customized living. And there is the practice guide here will give you more information on how to how this all works. So at the end of the form, it'll tell you whether or not the person is eligible for 24-hour CL or not. Again, that's part of the reason for the form. But once you figure that out, oh, hold on a second here. I'm sorry, you guys. There's a at the very end, it'll say, can the person use customized living? And even if the person is ineligible for customized living, it still allows you to choose 24-hour CL. So the risk there is that you might be planning for 24-hour CL when you shouldn't be, because even if they're ineligible, it'll still allow you to choose 24-hour CL. So it's just something to be careful with when you're finishing this out. Is there a screenshot? Oh, and here's another thing I wanted to just go over, and I'm going to go back and find a screenshot that maybe we can get to later on. So this part right here, when you see errors and warnings, you're going to see this warning, rate exceeds limit, and that does not mean that your rate exceeded the limit. I know it looks kind of weird, but see where these two dots are? If there was an actual error, that would show up here. And remember, errors, you can still get a rate. But if it's an actual, no, errors, you can't get a rate. So you'll have to fix that if there's an error there in order to calculate the rate. So you just need to think of this as a header and just look where those dots are to see if indeed you need to fix something. Okay, so, and this is related to what I just told you, that you'll actually see a phrase there saying the planned rate exceeds the daily limit. So then you'll need to go back and make sure that you're reducing some of your services or whatever you need to do. I know I went through that really fast, but I know that we want to have time for questions. And while you guys are doing that, I'm gonna try to find I'm gonna try to cue something up to show you a little bit better about the end of that, what we were just showing.
So part of what I'm going to do is I will take 3 questions, and the reason being is, again, we'll do the same thing. Is that if at the end we get to them all, great. If you have had your hand up a while, I get a little concerned that you might not be about 24-hour customized living. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take the bottom 3 people on the list, and then we will come back to the others. So let's start with Ashley, please. Ashley, you are off mute, and I'm hoping you have a question in regards to one of the topics we've just covered.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
We can.
All right, so my question is about the 24-hour customized living. The current training zone, when we enter in the services for the 24-hour customized living, we got an error, but we weren't able to save it and come back. So we were trying to fix the error, but then basically we had to get out, and then when we come back, none of our data is saved. Would the support plan in the production zone, would that allow us to save data even though we have an error and we have to come back and fix it?
Can you explain what the error was?
So we selected a provider, and then it says that we have to have a 60 hours or more.
Yeah.
In order for someone to be on 24-hour. And,
yeah.
And then we try to fix the hours, and then when we fix the hours, it was over budget.
Yeah.
So we're struggling with that, and then like I said, and then we couldn't do anything with it, and then we wanted to get out, and the next day we went back and re-enter it again, but none of the data was saved.
Okay. So there are a couple things there. Did you save at each screen before you went to the next screen?
We couldn't save it. We tried to save, it wouldn't allow us to save.
Oh, because you couldn't calculate a rate. So we are aware of this issue, and I'm actually going to be doing some testing later today on that. The biggest thing, I guess, to check is that there's the 2 ways that you automatically qualify, which is if you have if you have orientation supports that are needed, or behavioral supports, or if you have clinical monitoring that's at least once every 8 hours. So those are the 2 big ones. The third one is where you have to be dependent in 3 of the critical ADLs. And then the 4th way to qualify is the one that's kind of has a bunch of different factors. One being they have to need medication management. They have to have a need in one of the critical ADLs, and then they also need to have 50 hours of service. So if you're doing all of those things, if it's not qualifying automatically for one of the first 2, the behavioral or the clinical monitoring, and if it's not allowing you, saying they're not eligible for 24 CL, then that's the problem that I'm going to be testing.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, is that we have the behavior, but we don't have the 50 hours.
Okay, yeah, and there's been a few tickets that have come in regarding this, so I'm going to look at it and see if we can figure out what's gone wrong here and get it fixed before we'll try and get it fixed for you guys. Yeah, because
but my concern is, though, Amy, is that we had to re-enter all the information.
Yeah.
So my concern is, with the projection, will the data that we entered the first time, will it save? Even though we didn't have the correct information in there, will it still save, is what my...
It won't save everything unless you can calculate a rate.
So unless we have it correctly, it would not save, and then we have to re-enter everything again.
Yeah, so I guess for now, until we get this tested, I would just avoid doing anything
Just a
with
second.
that right now, so that we can determine what the issue is and hopefully give you some information on how to do that, because that's a work stoppage issue if you can't calculate a rate. So, but yeah, we're aware of that, and it just kind of came to our attention a few days ago. So I don't know if something happened with an update or what, but we are looking into that.
Thank you.
And so, Amy, I am going to have us move on to the next slides to make sure we get through them all. And then we can come back and answer other questions for the people that still have their hands raised if we have time. So I would like to, if we could, Amy Alexander, do you mind putting up the PowerPoint again, or would you prefer me to do it and run through the remaining slides?
Hi, Teresa. I can put it up. I'll have to make sure I'm on the right one. Just let me.
So we need to go to 101 is where
101. Okay, got it. It looks like Amy will have to maybe put it back to me or.
Oh.
I did, Amy.
Then while we're waiting, that's the first one is about service agreement, type B service agreement. Did you want to do that slide, or do you want me to just go ahead and go through the content on this slide?
Nope, I can go through these. That's fine.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you. So I just wanted to make sure we had a chance to coordinate.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. So this first one is about a type B service agreement. And so, as you know, in the support plan,
there's a background noise, like a car moving or wind or something. I'm not sure, but it's making it difficult to hear. Sorry to interrupt.
I don't hear it.
I think Mung just muted it, so it went away. Thank you.
Just went off.
Okay, everybody. Is this okay?
Yep, we can hear you just fine with no background. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so again, we're talking about a type B service authorization, and we know that assessment content is going to pull over into the support plan, and it's going to populate that type B service agreement. And when it does that, if the person is dependent upon a ventilator, and so it won't populate properly in one certain circumstance. So if it's 24 hours a day or over 20, or well, if it's 6 to 23, it will not populate correctly. That will display as an N or a no, and it should be a yes, a Y or a yes. If it's over 24 hours a day, it displays properly. So it's important for you to know that there is a distinction between 6 and 23. So be aware as you're doing support planning that this may affect your plan, your entry into MMIS, and you'll want to be aware that it's there. Amy, we are on slide 102.
Yeah, I was just going to say, could you move the slide? Yep.
Thank you. And now I think we're actually, so your direction is really just to make a change. So if a person is EN or the equivalent is also ventilator dependent for between 6 and 23 hours, change that N to a Y. On the MMIS type B, the PCA type B service agreement for entry into MMIS. There we go, I'll get it one of these days. All right, let's go on to 103. So the support plan signature sheet, the statement that requires a yes or a no response in the signature sheet, if I'm eligible for both CFSS or an alternative care program, I choose. And so this is on the signature sheet within the support plan. Right now on a 6791D, this is the person's opportunity when they're on a waiver to designate because PCA currently is an entitlement service, CFSS will continue to be an entitlement service, that we're required to have the person say, you know, I don't want to use all of my PCA hours for just using the service of PCA. I want to use some of those hours for homemaking or, you know, whatever service that might be under a waiver. So this is only, again, per waiver type. We can move to the directions on the next slide. And so when it happens, there's instructions that you need to do. So these, while they're available to you when you're in the support plan, you can look and you can see that this exists on the signature sheet. It doesn't print on the signature sheet. So that is our issue. So that we are requiring, you need to inform the person has to make an informed choice about this. So we have some language that we've developed for you that you can copy and paste into the support instructions at the PCA service line level. For people who are using some of their PCA hours or using all of their PCA hours for another waiver service. And so, yeah, oh goodness, we can go on to look to see, there's a couple of scenarios and a couple of different directions that you can use for doing this. And so it's just making sure that they indicate. You can also write your own, but just make sure that you're indicating how much PCA time the person is choosing to use for another waivered service, or if they're choosing to use all of their PCA time within their waiver. And so you'll want to make sure that this is how, in the interim until we're able to fix this, that you're designating that and meeting that requirement to inform the person. We can go on to the electronic signature. And this is our close to last one, but electronic signature. So currently when you have electronic, or when the person signs something electronically, so you'll have that ability in the new system, but when they sign it electronically, it doesn't print for the support plan. And so you will need to, this will walk you through, so you'll complete a browser print. So when you're in the system, instead of using the print button that is part of the system, you'll go up to your browser ellipses and you'll select print up there when you're on the signature page, so that you're able to print the person's signature. And so you'll use that print and attach it to the plan that you're sending to the person, so that they have a record of their electronic signatures. If you're not using electronic signatures, this won't apply, but in the interim, this is what we need to do until we are able to make that change. And then we can go on to questions.
Yeah, Beth, I would like to, Amy, can you go on to slide 108, please? So there are some other items that I just want to quick show you. So go ahead and go to slide 109. So the support plan notifications aren't all available on the support plan print function. And so what we have done is we're removing which ones would print and adding a document that you can pull from the help center to attach to the support plan, so that you do have all of them available. So next slide, please, Amy. So when you go to the help center and you look for template, which is what I typed into the search engine, then you will be able to see the support plan interpreter appeals civil rights ADA document. And you can see it's the top one in this line item, and you can print it and then include it with the person's support plan so that you meet the requirements that go along with that form. Next slide, please. Most of you will not run into this issue, but if you are able to search for an organization and you're trying to figure out which organization is correct, please use the provider ID that ends in MNR. The other providers are actual providers and not organizations in the system. And so we just want you to make sure that you know how to identify your organization correctly in case you see two Hennepin counties, which you can see at the top and the bottom of this one. You know that the one in MNR is actually the organization that's associated with your staff and your location. Next slide, please. And then lastly, Amy, do you want to do this one? You know it better than I, but I can do it if you.
Yeah. Yep, I can do this one, Teresa. So this one's talking about in the person profile, if there is a name or a birth date change, so typically those, the name, the name change or the birth date change would come from a state system. So if it was changed, the person had a name change or their birth date changed in Swindex, and then that gets populated back over to MnCHOICES. So if that happens, if the person has a name or a birth date change, and you've already opened their assessment form, that name or birth date change will not be affected in the assessment. So it won't reflect that change. If they have a change in age, that might impact assessment questions. That won't happen in the form if you have it opened already. And if there's a name change, it won't display on the header of a printed report if the person's name changes after you already opened the form. So in those scenarios where a person has a name change, I guess there isn't the next slide. So the workaround for that is similar to the one that we talked about for the MALTC, where if they do have a birth date or a name change, you would close that form and then reopen another one, and you can copy everything over. So open a new assessment, copy everything over, and then that birth date or that name change would reflect.
Thank you, Amy. And folks, I hate to say it, we are at 4. I was really hoping that if we got through this content, we would be done in time to do a demo of offline. And I want you to know that the micro-learning that is in MTZ on taking forms offline is a demo. It's basically a live demonstration of how to take forms offline. And you should go ahead and use it if we get a chance. On our next webinar, I will use it to demo then. We are at time, and I have to say to the folks who left your hands up and raised, you will have to submit anything you have for questions in on the help desk form because we just ran out of time today. But I want to take this time. Amy, will you go to the next slide, please? Go to the next slide, please. To just take the time to say thank you. We will we have this webinar has been recorded. It will be available on the DSD archive page. We have worked to meet our commitment to you to go through this current functionality document so you are aware of what items will be that you'll have to have workarounds for when you launch. So now you have that information. You are welcome to submit your help desk form if you have any questions or concerns. That's what it's there for. And we'd like to thank you for your conversations with us today. And I'm sorry, but we're at time, so we need to go ahead and go. So again, thank you everyone for coming. We appreciate the time with you today, and it was really important that we had a chance to go through these with you so that you were aware of them and could ask your questions. So we will talk to you all later, and thank you very much. So Mung, we are going to go ahead and end today's call. You can stop the recording. I will put myself on mute. I'm going to leave the session, and the team will leave the session as well. Thank you.